Hey everybody, welcome to Heart and Soul on Wednesday night, sometime in April, sometime in 2020. Massive welcome to you. I want to just bring something that will encourage you tonight, wherever you are, whatever house you're in. It's good to be in Heart and Soul. This is mainly for church, but if other people do join, then it's all relevant as well. I've got way too much material for one night, so but I don't finish tonight. I might well finish next week or next time. So there's so much information, so much of encouragement I want to bring to you over the next couple of weeks. Hope everybody's well. Everybody's good. You're good. You're well.
Yep.
Yeah. All fit. All healthy.
Yep.
Virus free. That's good. Excellent. Good to hear. Hope you're sitting comfortably. So we're going to begin very soon. I want to do something I don't normally do when I'm preaching, but it really helps if I do this tonight. I want to give you my thought pattern as to what I'm preaching about tonight, what kind of led me to talk about what I'm speaking about tonight, sharing with you tonight, encouraging with you tonight. I don't normally do it, but I think it's helpful tonight. So every message, I mean, the preachers will kind of share this with you. We'll be honest with you. Every message comes from a thought, just a thought that might come from a conversation that you're in, or something you overhear on TV, or whatever it might be. My thoughts for messages normally come at about 2:30, 3 in the morning, which is the most inconvenient time. It's the worst time, and I normally say things like, "You're going to be kidding me," and "This can't be right," and I've got to jot down this thought and then come back to it 5 or 6, 7 hours later. And so I was thinking, bearing in mind what's happening at the moment with our world and our situation, and many people are calling this World War III, although it's a different kind of war. The world is all united fighting against the same enemy, which is very unusual for a world war. We're fighting an enemy we can't see. Not fighting against each other. And then I began to think about World War II. There's been a few things on TV, this guy who's 99 and raising all these millions of funds, and was in the army and talks about World War II. And I was thinking about World War II, and not to downgrade anything that's happening now, because everything that's happening now is tragic, and loss of life is tragic. But and not even to compare, because you can't compare World War II with what's happening right now. It is totally different. But I think it would help to lead you on this thought about perspective. Just to have, I think, looking back at the last World War, when the whole world was at war, and where we are now, gives you a kind of perspective as to what's happening now, and maybe make you feel a little bit better tonight about what's happening now. And so I came across a couple of things over the last couple of days which made me think about World War II. My dad was, when my dad got called to the war, called to be a soldier, he was 33 years old. And I found this just the other day. And you probably can't read that, I can't see it properly, but this dropped through my dad's letterbox in 1939. So this piece of card, this piece of paper is actually 80-something years, I think my maths are right, 80 years old. And that dropped through his letterbox when he was 33. And what it says is, it says you are required to report, and these words are printed very clear, you are required to report at once. That was the at once. And so as soon on the morning he received this through his letterbox 80-something years ago, at once he had to leave everything behind. There was no time for parties or goodbyes. He had to pack a very small suitcase, bring this letter with him, and it says, report to the Durham Light Infantry in Newcastle upon Tyne at once. Perspective. All we asked to do is work from home. Yeah. Okay, it's not easy. I know it's not. And it's uncomfortable. It's not the same. I know. But just a bit of perspective tonight as to how, we might be grumbling, and might be complaining, and might be moaning, and might be whinging, and might be whining, and some of us have good cause to do that. Tearing our hair out and that kind of stuff, and getting bored. But just a little bit of perspective. How would you feel if that dropped through your letterbox tomorrow morning saying at once, right? And then I got to think about my mum. And during the Second World War, my mum was 18 years old when she was asked to work in a bomb factory. So my mum made bombs, right? And it wasn't just as simple as that, because the facility where they were working was a top secret facility in Newton Aycliffe. And she had to leave. Sometimes, these are the stories that I heard growing up, because the World War only finished 11 years before I was born. So it was still quite fresh in people's minds as I was growing up in a primary school and the little schools that we were brought up in. And so she would tell me stories about having, in the middle of the night, to sneak out of the house in the dark and walk with her friends 4 miles to the secret factory, and then at 4, half 4 in the morning, walking back again along dark country roads at 18 years old. So it was quite cool in school, when I got around to what our parents did and what your mums did. A lot of kids, the mums were made dresses, or the mums packed lunches, or the mums made bags, and my mum made bombs. My mother was a bomb maker. How cool is that? Is that really... That's cool. It's cool. As an 8-year-old child, that was cool. And so one of the stories that used to come out of the many conversations that we had over the years about the war was these things called ration books. Now, ration books everything was the same colour in those days. So it was a small book that you had that you went to the grocer's with. And the grocer would tick off the items that you were allowed to have for that week. They were called rations. Things like you could only have 1 egg per person per week. You could only have 2 ounces of butter per person per week. There was no chocolate, there was no coffee. You had 2 ounces of tea leaf per person per week. And then my thought pattern kind of crossed over to Daniel in the Bible, to the book of Daniel. And I want to talk tonight, just to kind of show you where I've been going on this journey with this message. I want to talk to you tonight about a miracle in the rations, because it's amazing it's a miracle that people survived in those 6 years of war. We've been in lockdown now for 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Some of you, 4 months. I've been to church for 4 months. We've been in lockdown before we need to lock down. That's another story. That's another message. But, for 6 years, people were rationed with food. In actual fact, the rationing went on for 14 years to 1954. And it's a miracle that anybody survived at all through the rations. But I want to talk tonight from the book of Daniel. And it's Daniel 1 and verse 12. I want to talk tonight, and I believe it's so relevant for today. I want to talk about a miracle in the rations. A miracle in the rations. And Daniel chapter 1 gives us a background of how Daniel and some of his friends were so favoured and so blessed to be invited by the king to join his court and to be invited into the inner circle of his court. And the king wanted the best looking guys, the fittest looking guys, the hottest looking guys, the best looking guys that he could possibly get, and wanted them to be healthy and well and fit. And so what he said, he laid down this whole table of feasts for them every day. And he said, you are allowed to have these delicacies and this fine wine. Daniel and his group of friends were believers. They were faithful, God-believing young people. And in Daniel 1, verse 12, Daniel makes this very strange request. He says to the king's servants, he says, we don't want any of the delicacies. We don't want the chocolate, we don't want the cream cakes, we don't want the crisps. We don't want the pasties, we want the steaks, we want the beef burgers, the quarter pounders with cheese and McFlurries. He says in Daniel 1 verse 12, he says to the king, he said, listen, just give us vegetables. Give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. And of course, the people around him were horrified that they were going to waste away, that they were going to die, they were going to get ill, and the king would be furious and kill them all. And then it says in verse 20, the end result of these couple of weeks of vegetables and water to drink, the Bible says in verse 20, and in all matters of wisdom and understanding about which the king examined them, the king found Daniel and his friends 10 times better than all the magicians and all the astrologers, better than the faithless, better than the unbelievers. But listen to this, not just better, but 10 times better. And you know, the more I look at what Daniel asked for, the more I look at Daniel's request, the stranger it is. Because Daniel said, give us the rations, okay? Give us the least. Give us the things that are less popular. He says, give us the things that other people despise. Give us the things that other people reject. Give us the things that other people don't want. Don't give us the same as everybody else. In actual fact, he said, and this is the strangest thing to get our head around, which made me think about rations. He says, actually, give us less than everybody else. Just give us less. Don't give us as much. And he says, if you give us less, if you don't give us what you give other people, he says, we won't complain. We won't get down about it. We won't get angry about it. We won't be looking at what other people have got and be getting jealous. We won't want what someone else has got. He says this, he says, listen, he's a challenge. As a believer, right? As a prayer person, as a worship person, as a praise person, as a believing person. He said, listen, we will work with what we are given. Okay, just think about that for a second. He says, we will work with what we are given, even if it's less, even if it's below what other people, even if it's inferior to what other people are getting. We will work with what we are given, and we will not just survive, we will thrive. So we give us less, and we will thrive, not survive. Have you got that? We will thrive on less. He says to him, he says, give us less, and we will produce more. So put us on rations. Did you get the thought pattern? Put us on rations, put us on less, put us on inferior, put us on basics, and we will produce more, but not just more. He says, you watch. As a believing person, as a prayer, as a worshipper, as a praiser, as a person who's faithful to God, we won't just produce more, we'll produce 10 times more. And the whole idea was, he says to them, we will do more with less.
Yeah.
I think that is so relevant for today. You see, he believed that he could do more with less because there was a miracle in the rations. Right? There was a miracle in the rations. There was a miracle in having less.
Yeah.
There was a miracle in restriction. There was a miracle in confinement. There was a miracle with less. 10 times better than before, while living on less. And despite all the restrictions I had to go through, despite the lack, while others were feasting on the stuff that they were feasting, anything they wanted, the Bible called them the king's delicacies. If they were the king's delicacies, believe you me, they probably wouldn't be from Greg's. They're probably from Harrods or Selfridges, or right. They'll be the best of the best. So while those sitting around him were eating the best of the best. He preferred lack. He said, lack will do me more than plenty.
Yeah.
With less resources, with less supply, with less luxury, and with more lack and with more difficulty, with more discomfort. Anybody feeling like that right at the moment? That the lack and the difficulty and the discomfort and the boundaries are becoming tighter, and there's less and there's lack. And it's my question was this. My thought pattern, my question when I looked at that one, I thought about Daniel making that very strange request. Give us less and we'll do better. How do you emerge from less 10 times better than before? How do you emerge from less, from having less? And this is a question as a leader of the church and to leaders of church and to team workers and to people who work in the church and sacrifice in the church and attend the church. How do you emerge from having less 10 times better than before? How can we as a church, when we have less to work with, we have zero budget to work on as far as those, big shout out to these guys, to Henry and Callum who work on the production and everything, and praise Henry and praise Callum. We deserve some thanks because we're working on a zero budget to produce every week a podcast that goes out to all you guys so we can feed you, so we can encourage you. We have less to work with now than we had before. How do we produce 10 times more? How do we emerge from this, from less? With less people and produce more? Better than all the people around us. Better than the bad news we're hearing. How do we emerge from less? Better than the forecast. Better than the predictions. Better than the prognosis. But the big challenge is this, how do we not just emerge better, but how do we emerge from this? How do we come out of this 10 times better? It's a good thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you emerge 10 times better on vegetables and water? How would you emerge 10 times better on Brussels sprouts and tap water? I mean, who in their right minds, right, would choose Brussels sprouts over apple crumble? Come on, not many people would even choose Brussels sprouts. But how Daniel comes out of this situation 10 times better than before, living on, cabbage and warm water. No chocolate, no coffee, just cabbage and water. How do you emerge from rations to be healthier, to be better, to be bigger, to be stronger, but not just surviving, but to be 10 times better? How do you do that, Daniel? Eh? When they say that this is when and this was the concern of the people who were feeding Daniel, the king's servants. The concern was, well, you're going to get worse.
Yeah.
Nobody survives. Nobody comes out of less better. Nobody comes out of lack stronger. Nobody comes out of weakness with more. He says, Daniel, this is a no-brainer. He says, you're going to come out of this worse. You're going to come out of this unhealthier, right? Which is what a lot of the prognosis people are saying. You're going to come out of this poorer. Daniel, you're going to come out of this in depression. Daniel, you're going to come out of this less because you've got less to work with. So you can only produce less from less. Who can emerge? How can anybody emerge from the ruins of the nightmare, from the ashes of burnt plans, from the ashes of burnt dreams? How can anybody emerge from the pain of loneliness, from the pain of grief, from the pain of separation 10 times better? 10 times better from the rations. But that's exactly what Daniel did. And it's exactly what you and I, who believers like Daniel, who praise like Daniel, who worshippers like Daniel, who praises like Daniel, praising in the lesson, praising in the night, we can come out of all of this nightmare, all of this aching, all of this pain, all of this less. We can come out of this 10 times better. And I want us to see how we can do that this week and next week. How can anybody do that? It takes a special kind of person to do that. How can anything thrive? Because Daniel said, we're not just surviving this, guys. Yeah. We're going to thrive on less.
Yeah.
We're going to thrive on lack. We're going to thrive on restriction. We're going to thrive on this new normal. How can anything or anybody survive and thrive in drought? How can anything thrive in a dry season? How can anything thrive in a storm? How can anything thrive in the depths of a valley? How can anything thrive in a dip? When the Bank of England are just forecasting this dip, this recession, and yet Daniel was in the middle of a recession, in the middle of a dip, and he said, I'm going to come up this 10 times better. It won't destroy me. It won't break me down. It will only make me stronger and better and fitter and healthier. And actually, guys, 10 times better. How can anyone thrive on lack and on rations? Well, you know what? Why don't you stand with us tonight? Why don't you, as part of our church, as part of our family tonight, why don't you stand with us and stand with Daniel and say, you know what, we are believing in the middle of all of this, right now, we are believing for a miracle in the rations.
Yeah.
Go on, right where you are in your home, whether you're on your own or with your family or watching this in a room somewhere, or maybe not even live tonight, but at a later date, people might watch this. And why don't you make a declaration? Well, why don't you make a statement of faith right now when everybody else around is panicking, when everybody else around us is forecasting doom and gloom? Well, why don't we stand tonight with Daniel? Because remember, they told Daniel, you're going to come out of this worse. Why don't we believe that we're going to come out of this actually as a church, as a believer? My own personal relationship with God, actually, it's going to be better.
Yeah, come on.
Not just better, but actually, my relationship with God isn't just going to survive this. Yeah. It's going to be 10 times better. Yeah. Go on, say it. 10 times better tonight. Let's make that declaration. I'm believing. We are believing. As a church, we're believing. As your family, you're believing. As an individual on your own tonight, feeling the loneliness tonight, but in the middle of that loneliness, in the middle of that isolation, just believing tonight for a miracle in the rations. Yeah. Exactly what Daniel did. How can we get a miracle in the middle of a drought? How can we have a miracle in the middle of lack? Let me read you Isaiah. Isaiah 35 and verse 6. Isaiah 35 verse 6, it says this. It says, then the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the dumb sing. For waters shall burst forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. Hey, listen, you don't get streams in a desert. God says, I'm going to produce something. I'm going to produce tongues that can't sing. I'm going to produce a song out of them. He says, those people who are lame, those people who are crippled, those people who are limping, he said, through me, he said, you people who are limping tonight, you people who are lame tonight, you people who have no strength, he said, I'm going to make you leap like a deer, run like a deer, over hurdles and obstacles and problems through me, God says. And through me, he says, I'm going to make streams in the desert. Oh man, shouldn't that just fill you with some kind of faith tonight? Just to encourage you tonight. It's not through anything we do, But there tonight, we are believing for a miracle in the rations,
Yeah.
a miracle in the less, a miracle in the restrictions, a miracle in your loneliness tonight. Hey, remember the streams in the desert. We are, this is clever, right? This is very clever. So just feel free to applaud wherever you are. Streams in the desert, the Bible says. We are streaming in the desert right now. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah. We are streaming right now in the desert, right into your home right now. We're not streaming from a church building. We're not streaming with any kind of production. We have zero production. We are streaming. And it's my prayer tonight that as we stream into your home, stream onto your couch, stream onto your chair, stream into that quietness where it's been quiet all day, just stream into your home right now, that there will be streams in the desert and there will burst forth in the wilderness.
Yeah.
That there will come a presence into your room. There will come a presence into your family. There will come a presence into your marriage. There will come a presence from God into your loneliness that will stream into your room. Just stream in. Just flow in and stream. That we can thrive, and in lack we can grow, and in lack we can live and not die. You know why? Because there's a miracle.
That's right.
In the rations.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got time for 1 point. 5 minutes. It's okay?
Yeah.
Everybody doing all right? You with me? I can see a few commenting on the screen there. Lots of clapping hands and lots of prayer things and lots of pound signs. Oh no, sorry. Pound signs. The smiley faces. Pound signs. Feel free to send pound signs. Oh, but still send pounds. Streaming to the letterbox. Streams. Okay. How do we do this? How did Daniel? There it is. Thanks, Courtney. There we go. I see the pound signs. How do we do this? How did Daniel produce 10 times more out of lack? Let me give you one quick point tonight that we'll carry on next week or next time we do this, hopefully next week. I think this might do you good. It's what we need tonight, church.
Yeah,
it's what we need. Number one, how do we do this? It's okay telling you what happens, is how we do it. Number one, dead simple, 2 words, 3 syllables. Number one, decide to.
Yeah.
That's simple. Why didn't you think of that? How do we do this? Decide to. How do we get a miracle in the rations? We decide to. I think we've all been inspired and we've all been encouraged. And this message came out of a thought when I watched this 99-year-old army captain, this 99-year-old guy with all his medals, walking up and down outside of his house. And if a 99-year-old guy, right, can emerge from this crisis having raised, I think to date, £28 million. Now, come on, are there any? That's a stream in the desert, right? When the Bank of England is saying we're going to go into recession, we're going to go down, money's not going to be worth anything, oil now is worth less than $1 a barrel, and yet a 99-year-old guy walks up and down outside of his house several times a day and raises £28 million. He will emerge from this crisis, probably by the end of it, about £30 million richer. Well, he won't be, but he could do. £30 million better. You know why? You know why he did that? Because he decided to.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, is it? It's not a magic formula. You see, having a miracle in the rations isn't a magic formula, X plus Y equals Z. It's something every single one of us can do. You can do this tonight in your living room where you are. You can do this tonight. You're watching this in the car. You can do this tonight watching it if you go to bed already. You can watch, wherever you're watching from. You tonight can decide to. you know what? I'm going to decide to come out of this, whatever we're in, pandemic crisis, whatever you want to call it, this mess, this lack. I'm going to come out and I'm going to believe tonight for a miracle in the rations.
Yeah.
Because I decide to. Is anybody with me tonight deciding to tonight?
Yeah.
That if this 19-year-old man, this gentleman can do that, right? Just walking around his garden, 28 million pounds, come on, because he decided to.
Yeah.
Why don't we decide tonight? Do not ever underestimate the power of deciding to. There's power in deciding to. You know, at the end of all of this, some of you might decide to go back to the gym. Good place to start. Just decide to. Some of you might decide to lose the 2 stone that you've put on over the last 8 weeks. You know where it all begins. It doesn't begin on the treadmill. It doesn't begin on the bike. It begins because we decide to. I decide to. And don't ever underestimate the power of deciding to.
Yeah.
Decide to come out of this thing that we're in 10 times better. Daniel 1 verse 8, the Bible says that Daniel purposed in his heart. He purposed in his heart. What does that mean? That means he decided to. It's a thought. It's a mindset. Decided to. He committed to. He set his mind to. You know, the Bible says about Jesus, way back in Isaiah, the Bible prophesied in Isaiah 50 verse 7. Isaiah 50 verse 7 talks about Jesus hundreds of years before Jesus arrived on the earth. But Isaiah 57 says, he set his face like a flint towards his goal, towards his purpose, which was to die on that cross in Jerusalem. He set his face like a flint. Now, if you don't know what a flint is a hard piece of stone. It was used to make weapons out of. So he set his face, he hardened his face like stone. He decided to, and nothing and no one could put him off that plan and that purpose that God gave him, that he decided to carry out. And just as we finish in a couple of minutes, it's strange, isn't it? Daniel chose Brussels sprouts. I mean, who does that? Daniel chose rations. Paul chose prison. In actual fact, Paul was so stubborn in getting to see the governor of Rome and to be put in prison that he not only survived the shipwreck, he saved all the people on board the shipwreck so they could all start again and carry on to Rome. He just had this stubbornness about him. And stubbornness can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. But when it comes to things of God, there's nothing better than a man or a woman who is so stubborn and so hardened and so determined and so positive that they're going to do what God called them. So Paul chose prison. Jesus chose the cross. I didn't. None of us chose, I've said this before, none of us chose what's happening right now. 4 months ago, we wouldn't have chosen this. But I can choose. The power of decision, the power of choice. I can choose to come out of this 10 times better. Why don't you make that choice right now? I've got this daily mission now. It's part of my routine. I've got a new routine, which still involves, by the way, Starbucks coffee. I still get a Starbucks coffee every day. And now you're jealous, now you're wondering, now you're hating me. Well, I'm not going to tell you where I get it from, but it's real. Not the house. It's not in-house. I can go out on my way to do some exercise and to do some prep. I can go out and I collect my Starbucks coffee every morning. Okay, so I'm there. So anyway, part of my daily routine is the garden is getting nicer. Or should I say the grass? I've only got grass. I haven't got anything else. But the grass is getting nicer. And a couple of days ago, I looked around the garden and I thought to myself, hang on, I didn't plant those dandelions. I don't remember last August, September getting some dandelion seeds and popping them in the garden. And I didn't choose the dandelions on my grass, but you know what? Hey, they're growing. I didn't choose them. I didn't sow them. But you have no idea the battle I have every day as I go to chop them out of the garden every single day. There are about 50 of them every single day. And little demons, and they come out the grass and pop up when the sun comes out. Dandelions, I didn't sow them. Where did you come from? I didn't sow any seed. But I have to deal with them. Here's my final thought tonight. For 36 minutes, my final thought. Sometimes, and I've put 5 hashtags next to it, which means it's important. I've got 5 hashtags. Hashtag, 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 which means it's mega important to finish on. Sometimes, guys, put some hashtags in your notes. Sometimes you just have to deal with things you didn't sow.
Yeah.
Right? Come on, let's hear that amen tonight.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to deal with things you did not sow.
Yeah.
We might not choose them. We haven't sown the seed, but we have to deal with them tonight. And the way we deal with them is to believe that there is a miracle in the rations.
Yeah.
We might not choose them, but we can be 10 times better, Daniel said, despite them.
That's right.
So come on, join us next week.
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple of more points of how we can have a miracle in the rations. I hope you all have a good night. I hope this has encouraged you. Let us know if it has. I hope this has done your heart good, your heart good and your soul good. It's called Heart and Soul. Don't forget, Sunday morning, 11 o'clock, we'll be here with some music and the second part of the middle of the bridge. Okay, so we'll see you then. Take care. Look after yourselves. Right? God bless you.